Sands of Iwo Jima was not just a patriotic war movie, it was a Hollywood propaganda machine that weaponized real life trauma, turning grieving Marines into movie stars and creating a myth that defined a generation. What audiences saw was John Wayne's definitive performance as the ultimate Marine Corps sergeant. What they did not see was the behind the scenes battle with a star's crippling guilt. The exploitation of real life heroes still suffering from post traumatic stress disorder, and a production so intense it gave its cast nightmares for years. Today, we are storming the beach to uncover 20 weird facts about Sands of Iwo Jima that will change how you see this American classic forever. And stick around for our bonus fact about the tragic, real life fate of the heroes the film pretended to celebrate. Hit that subscribe button and let's uncover the brutal secrets of the film that made John Wayne a legend. Number 20. The film exploited grieving, real-life Iwo Jima survivors. The film's most authentic elements were not props or sets, they were the traumatized Marines playing versions of themselves. The producers made the stunning decision to cast the 3 surviving flag raisers from the actual Iwo Jima photograph: Ira Hayes, Rene Gagnon, and John Bradley. What audiences did not know was that these men were not seasoned actors. They were young men still reeling from the physical and psychological wounds of war. Ira Hayes, in particular, was battling severe alcoholism and post-traumatic stress disorder, a direct result of his combat experiences. Putting them in front of cameras to reenact their trauma was a deeply cynical, exploitative move by the studio. They were paraded as heroes but paid a pittance, their pain used to lend an air of unimpeachable authenticity to a Hollywood production. Their haunted, uncomfortable presence on screen is not acting, it is a raw, televised glimpse of men the studio had no business putting in a movie. Number 19, John Wayne's performance was fueled by crushing guilt. John Wayne was not just playing a tough-as-nails sergeant, he was overcompensating for a deep personal shame. During World War II, while many of his Hollywood peers enlisted, Wayne, then at the peak of his fame, remained in Hollywood. He received a 3A deferment status for family dependency, which many whispered was a result of studio intervention to protect their biggest asset. This haunted him for the rest of his life. What audiences did not know was that his tyrannical, obsessive performance as Sergeant Stryker was a form of public penance. He threw himself into the role with a ferocity that bordered on sadism, driving his co-stars relentlessly on set. It was not just acting, it was a desperate attempt to become the man he felt he should have been during the war, a performance born from a well of private insecurity and public guilt. Number 18, the film gave its cast and crew real, vicarious post-traumatic stress disorder. The film's depiction of combat was not just realistic, it was so psychologically intense that it inflicted genuine trauma on the people making it. The constant simulated explosions, the chaotic beach landing sequences filmed with deafening sound effects, and the sheer emotional weight of the subject matter took a severe toll. What audiences did not know was that several cast members, including John Wayne himself, reported suffering from nightmares and anxiety for months after filming. They had spent weeks living in a hyper-realistic recreation of one of the war's bloodiest battles, and the psychological lines blurred. The film's sound designer later admitted that he had to take a long vacation after the project, unable to escape the sounds of screaming and gunfire that echoed in his head. The production did not just simulate the trauma of Iwo Jima. It became a conduit for it, leaving a lasting, invisible scar on everyone involved. Number 17. The film was a cynical recruitment tool for the Marine Corps. The film was not just entertainment, it was a multi-million-dollar recruiting commercial for the United States Marine Corps. The Corps, seeking to bolster its image and numbers in the post-war era, cooperated fully with the production. What audiences did not know was that this cooperation came at a price. The Corps had final script approval. They ensured the film portrayed Marines as heroic, disciplined, and utterly essential to victory. Any negative or critical aspects of military life were sanitized or removed entirely. The character of Sergeant Stryker was designed to be the ideal Marine non-commissioned officer, a tough but fair leader who molds boys into men. The film's massive success led to a significant spike in enlistments, a fact the Marine Corps proudly touted for years. It was a brilliant piece of propaganda, a fictional story that was weaponized to create a powerful, enduring myth that still shapes the public's perception of the Marines today. Number 16. The original script was gutted and sanitized. The film's source material was not a patriotic novel. It was a gritty, unflinching story called The Red Beach of Iwo Jima by Harry Brown. The original script was much darker and more cynical. What audiences did not know was that the studio and the Marine Corps systematically stripped it of its realism. The original script included scenes of soldiers questioning the purpose of the battle, moments of cowardice, and a much more ambiguous ending. The studio feared this was too pessimistic for a 1949 audience. They demanded rewrites that injected more conventional heroics, removed moral ambiguity, and transformed the story into a clear-cut tale of good versus evil. The final film is a heavily sanitized version of the original vision, a gutted story that traded psychological truth for patriotic myth-making, a compromise that ensured its commercial success at the cost of its artistic soul. Number 15. The famous flamethrower scene was incredibly dangerous. The film's most harrowing combat sequence, featuring a Marine using a flamethrower to destroy a Japanese bunker, was not a special effect, it was a terrifyingly real stunt. In an era before computer-generated imagery, this meant using a real, functioning flamethrower with real, burning napalm. What audiences did not know was that the stuntman, a former Marine named Dick Tyrrell, was strapped into a harness and placed just feet away from the path of the actual flames. The bunker itself was a real set, designed to erupt in a massive, controlled fireball. A single miscalculation by the pyrotechnics team could have resulted in a horrific on-screen death. The scene is so visceral and terrifying because the danger was 100% real. It is a white-knuckle moment of filmmaking that would be impossible to replicate today, a chilling testament to the "they do not make them like they used" to era of movie stunts. Number 14. The film's black sand was a complete fake. The film's most distinctive visual element, the iconic black sand of Iwo Jima, was a complete Hollywood fabrication. The producers wanted to capture the unique look of the volcanic island, but filming on location was impossible. What audiences did not know was that the beach sequences were shot at Camp Pendleton in California. To replicate the black sand, the special effects department did not use sand at all. They used tons and tons of black crushed cinder. This material looked perfect on camera, but it was a nightmare for the actors. The crushed cinder was sharp, abrasive, and got into everything, chafing their skin and causing immense discomfort. When the actors died on the beach, they were not just getting dirty, they were getting scraped and cut by the fake sand. It is a classic example of Hollywood sacrificing the comfort and safety of its cast for the sake of visual authenticity, creating a believable illusion through a very uncomfortable reality. Number 13. John Wayne was a tyrant to his co-stars. John Wayne's on-screen authority was not just acting, it was a reflection of his domineering behavior on set. Fueled by his own guilt and insecurity, Wayne ruled the production with an iron fist. What audiences did not know was that he was particularly brutal to his younger co-stars, especially John Agar, who was married to Wayne's daughter at the time. Wayne would belittle Agar's performance between takes, criticizing his line delivery and his physicality in an effort to toughen him up. He also clashed with director Alan Dwan, frequently ignoring his instructions and trying to direct scenes himself. This created a tense, fractured atmosphere on set where many of the actors were intimidated and afraid to speak up. The power dynamic was so skewed that Wayne, the star, effectively became a co-director, his ego shaping the film as much as the script itself. Number 12, the film intentionally. Ignore the first flag raising. The film's climactic scene is a recreation of the famous second flag raising on Mount Suribachi. What audiences did not know was that the film completely ignores the first, less famous flag raising that occurred earlier that day. The first flag was smaller and the raising was less dramatic. When High Command saw it, they ordered it taken down and replaced with a larger, more visible flag for propaganda purposes. It was the second raising that was captured in the iconic photograph. The film chose to dramatize only the second event, cementing the myth of a single, heroic moment. By ignoring the first, more spontaneous flag raising, the film simplified history and erased the complex, bureaucratic reality behind the famous photo, choosing to present a clean, uncomplicated narrative of heroism that was more powerful but less truthful. Number 11. John Agar was cast because he was John Wayne's son-in-law. John Agar's leading role as the rebellious Private Conway was not just a result of a great audition, It was a classic case of Hollywood nepotism. Agar was a relatively unknown actor when he was cast, but he had one crucial qualification. He was married to John Wayne's daughter, Mary. What audiences did not know was that Wayne personally championed Agar for the role, effectively handpicking his son-in-law to be his main co-star. This created a strange dynamic on set, as Agar had to prove himself not only to the director, but also to his intimidating father-in-law. While Agar's performance is competent, his casting was a source of quiet resentment among other, more experienced actors who were overlooked for the part. It is a reminder that even in a film as gritty as Sands of Iwo Jima, the familiar Hollywood game of family connections and backroom deals was still being played. Number 10, the film's ending was almost much darker and more cynical. The film's final poignant scene, where Sergeant Stryker is killed by a sniper just as the battle is won, was not the original planned ending. The first draft of the script had a much bleaker conclusion. What audiences did not know was that in the original version, Stryker survives the battle, but is left a broken man, having lost all his men. The final scene was to show him sitting alone on the beach, staring blankly at the ocean, a hollow victory. The studio and the Marine Corps found this ending to be too pessimistic and defeatist. They argued that a hero like Stryker should die a noble death, not live on as a psychological wreck. The script was rewritten to give Stryker a heroic, sacrificial death, transforming the ending from a statement on the futility of war into a more conventional, patriotic tragedy. Number 9. The film was shot in color to hide the blood. The decision to film Sands of Iwo Jima in vibrant Technicolor was not just an artistic choice, it was a strategic one to soften the brutal reality of war. While many gritty war films of the era were shot in black and white to convey a sense of realism, Republic Studios went with color for its prestige project. What audiences did not know was that one of the primary reasons for this was to make the film's violence more palatable to 1949 audiences. In black and white, blood appears stark, black, and shocking. In Technicolor, the blood is a bright, almost cartoonish red, which feels less real and less disturbing. It was a clever way to depict the horrors of combat without alienating the audience with graphic imagery. The film's colorful, almost beautiful depiction of a bloody battle was a deliberate act of sanitization, turning the gore of war into a more acceptable and more profitable spectacle. Number 8. The film created the John Wayne Marine archetype. The character of Sergeant Stryker did not just define John Wayne's career, it created a cultural archetype for the Marine non-commissioned officer that has persisted for decades. Before this film, the cinematic Marine was often a generic soldier. What audiences did not know was that Stryker, the tough, no-nonsense leader who is secretly caring and ultimately dies for his men, became the blueprint. His catchphrases, his demeanor, and his training methods were absorbed into the public consciousness. Future generations of Marines would find their own sergeants being compared to Stryker, and actors would imitate Wayne's performance for years to come. The film's massive cultural impact solidified this single character as a definitive image of a Marine leader, a myth so powerful that it influenced the real-life institution it was meant to portray. Number 7, John Wayne's Oscar nomination was a thank you for not winning. John Wayne's first and only Academy Award nomination for Best Actor for this role is a legendary piece of Hollywood history, but it was not just for his performance. What audiences did not know was that the nomination was widely seen as a make-up call from the Academy. For years, Wayne had been a major star but had been overlooked for his roles in films like Stagecoach and Red River. By 1949, there was a feeling in Hollywood that it was his turn. While his performance as Stryker is iconic, many believe the nomination was as much a recognition of his career and status as it was for this specific role. He ultimately lost to Broderick Crawford for All the King's Men, but the nomination itself cemented his transition from popular star to respected actor, a career milestone he had long coveted. Number 6, the actors endured a real mini boot camp. To ensure the actors looked and moved like real Marines, the production did not rely on choreography alone. They put the entire cast through a grueling, week-long boot camp run by real Marine Corps drill instructors. What audiences did not know was that this was not a gentle, Hollywood-style workout. It was the real deal. The actors were woken at dawn, forced to run miles, do endless push ups and sit ups, and were subjected to the constant verbal abuse of authentic drill instructors. John Wayne, despite his star status, participated fully. This intense training broke down the actors and rebuilt them as a believable military unit. The exhaustion, the discipline, and the camaraderie they developed were all genuine, and it shines through in the film's first act, lending the characters a level of authenticity that no amount of acting could have faked. Number 5. The film's famous line was ad-libbed by John Wayne. One of the film's most quoted and iconic lines was not in the script. In the scene where Sergeant Stryker is trying to get his men to move under fire, he barks the command, "Lock and load." What audiences did not know was that this was a piece of authentic military jargon that Wayne himself supplied. The scripted line was something more generic, like "ready your rifles." Wayne, who had spent months researching Marine culture and language, felt the dialogue was weak. On the day of the shoot, he replaced the scripted line with "lock and load," a command he had learned from the Marine advisors on set. Director Alan Dwan loved it and kept it in the film. The phrase, which perfectly encapsulates the sound and rhythm of military command, entered the popular lexicon thanks to Wayne's ad-lib, a small but brilliant contribution from an actor who was completely immersed in his role. Number 4, the film shows only the American perspective of the battle. For all its talk of realism, the film presents a completely one-sided view of the Battle of Iwo Jima. The Japanese enemy is portrayed as a faceless, monolithic force of fanatical soldiers, rarely seen and never humanized. What audiences did not know was that this was a deliberate and conscious choice. The film's purpose was to serve as a tribute to the American Marine, not a balanced historical document. There are no scenes showing the Japanese perspective, their commanders, or their own struggles and fears. They are simply an obstacle to be overcome. This dehumanization of the enemy was common in war films of the era, but it feels particularly stark in a film that prides itself on its authenticity. It is a reminder that Sands of Iwo Jima is not a documentary, but a piece of myth-making designed to celebrate one side and demonize the other. Number 3, the film's success led to a real, post-war USMC boom. The film's impact was not just cultural, it had a tangible, measurable effect on the United States Marine Corps. Following the WWII film's release in 1949, the Corps, which was struggling with post-war downsizing and a lack of public identity, saw a massive and unexpected surge in enlistments. What audiences did not know was that recruiting offices across the country reported that young men were walking in, citing John Wayne's character as their inspiration. The film presented the Marines as the most elite and heroic branch of the military, an image that resonated deeply with a generation of young men seeking purpose and adventure. The Corps leaned into this, using the film's imagery and themes in its own recruiting posters and advertisements for years to come. Sands of Iwo Jima did not just make money at the box office, it helped shape the future of the real-life organization it celebrated. Number 2. The final shot is a symbolic rebirth. The film's final, lingering shot of the 3 flag raisers is not just a dramatic ending, it is a piece of powerful, symbolic imagery. After Sergeant Stryker is killed, the camera focuses on the 3 real veterans, Hayes, Gagnon, and Bradley, as they look out over the conquered island. What audiences did not know was that this shot was designed to represent the passing of the torch. Stryker, the old guard, the professional soldier, is gone. In his place stand the boys he trained, the citizen soldiers who are now the new heroes of the Marine Corps. They are the living embodiment of his legacy. It is a poignant, symbolic moment of rebirth where the sacrifice of the father figure, Stryker, ensures the survival and victory of his sons, the new Marines. It transforms the ending from a simple death scene into a profound statement about legacy and the cyclical nature of war. Number 1, Sergeant Stryker's name was a tribute to a real hero. The character's iconic name was not just a random choice, it was a deliberate tribute to one of the Marine Corps' most legendary figures. The screenwriters named the character Stryker as a nod to Major General William Rupertus Stryker, a highly decorated Marine officer who was a veteran of World War I and a key commander in the Pacific in World War II. What audiences did not know was that General Stryker was known for his tough, no-nonsense leadership and his deep devotion to his men, exactly the qualities embodied by John Wayne's character. This hidden homage adds another layer of respect and authenticity to the film. By naming their hero after a real life legend, the filmmakers were grounding their fictional creation in the soil of Marine Corps history, ensuring that the character of Sergeant Stryker would resonate as an authentic representation of the Corps' finest. Bonus fact: the tragic fate of the real life stars. The most shocking secret is not in the film, it is in the heartbreaking, real life stories of the three Iwo Jima veterans who starred in it. The film presents them as triumphant heroes, but their lives after the war were filled with pain and tragedy. What absolutely no one in the 1949 audience knew was the full extent of their suffering. Ira Hayes, the Pima Indian, was plagued by guilt and post-traumatic stress disorder, became a severe alcoholic, and was found dead in a ditch just 3 years after the film's release at the age of 32. René Gagnon, who tried to cash in on his fame, found himself shunned and unable to hold a job, dying of a heart attack at 54. And in a final, devastating twist uncovered by historians in 2016, it was revealed that the man identified for decades as John Bradley in the photo was not him at all. The real Six flag raiser was a Marine named Harold Schultz, who quietly lived out his life as a postal worker, never seeking fame. The film, which used these men as symbols of victory, was unknowingly documenting the beginning of their tragic post-war struggles. Sands of Iwo Jima was not just a movie, it was a myth-making machine, a film that took the raw, painful reality of war and reforged it into a powerful, enduring legend. It was a product of its time, a piece of propaganda that served its purpose so well it became the truth for generations of Americans. The film's legacy is complex. It gave us an iconic hero and a powerful tribute to the Marine Corps. But it did so by exploiting the very men it celebrated and by sanitizing the brutal, ugly truth of combat. It is a film that asks us to honor the warrior, even as it hides the full cost of the war. If this look behind the myth of a classic shocked you, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the movies you only think you know. And remember, the most difficult battles are often the ones fought after the war is over.